Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a great pleasure and an honor to be here with Elaad. As was introduced, I'm a Norwegian citizen originally. Well, I'm still a Norwegian citizen, but I'm living in the Netherlands. So I like to say I'm from the EV capital of the world, and I live in the EV charging capital of the world. I'm an electrical and mechanical engineer of training. Also worked on energy economics. My wife is very important for me. She's from Costa Rica, and so we've been spending a lot of time in Costa Rica as well. And she's a campaigner. Actually, when I heard this was kind of TED-style talks, I was very inspired by her TED talk. So if you want to watch her talk, you can go and search for Costa Rica at TED.com. So now I'm wasting all my time to talk about that, but it's very important because for me this is not just a job, and I think for people in this room, you are here because you're this has purpose to you. Let's see if I can see my screen here. So, very happy to talk about the 4 freedoms, right? I think it's very important, and I think we're doing good work to set electric mobility free. And I took inspiration for the 4 freedoms of the European market to tell you guys a little bit about what we're doing and what we're observing in the marketplace. It's about the goods, charging stations. It's about the services. Is the charging station alive? It's about the capital. Is it open for people to invest? And it's about labor. Do we have the capacity to train ourselves and live free lives? So 1, it starts with a charging station. You have to have attractive, robust, and reliable charging stations wherever people go. We put a lot of work into making charging stations look nice because we want charging stations you want owners of sites, of restaurants, of hotels, of buildings to put their charging stations in the best locations so that they give attention to the cause. We've delivered about 60,000 charging stations around the world. We invest a lot in the development of the next generation of technologies. We have now about 60 hardware engineers working on our next generation of products. This is our LV product, which is designed for homes. Little fact for you, in Norway, about 80% of people can charge at home. In the Netherlands, only 20% of people can charge at home. So that's one of those interesting observations, by the way, of where people need to charge. In Norway, you won't see as many street-side chargers as you will see in the Netherlands. And when I work with markets, I'm responsible for. Now my team is doing business in about 35 countries, and what we say is, don't look, there's no white paper that you can copy, but you can look for inspiration. And so we bring people here to show them what we're doing. This is a new DS car that's going to come next year with the best looking charging station next to it. What helps us a lot when we go abroad is that OCPP is there. OCPP has now been accepted. I can tell you I've had conversations with regulators, with tenders across all continents, and OCPP has been adopted as the #1 standard. And I think that's very promising for the next steps with ISO 15118. We're working on things like EVBox and stuff like that as well, because you want charging stations to connect with the other technological reality that they exist in. We are also now working on very high-power charging stations. This is one of the first high-power charging stations installed in Europe. This was December last year from EVtronic, a company that we acquired in August. So now we are capable of supplying every charging need from 350 kilowatts, from 3.5 kilowatts at home to 350 kilowatts on the highway. We also invest a lot in software, because it's very important that the charging stations are alive. So on hardware, really we cannot stop. We have to, I really took inspiration from the first talk. You have to keep fighting for open standards, promoting OCPP, promoting ISO 15118, and promoting those open standards. And also, we suffer a bit sometimes from brand-specific standards. We're suffering a bit from country-specific standards. There's, I'm just going to see the E word for Germany, the Eichrecht, which is a very kind of blocking investments. And I would really love to see us stepping away from that. There are also car manufacturers that come up with their own standards, probably for good reasons for them, but that does stop and it does slow down the transition. Second, it's critical that the charging stations are reliable, accessible, and that the prices are transparent. This picture is from a road trip I was doing in Norway, and I thought it was pretty symbolic that the gas pumps were getting ready to be taken off. The charging stations here were working, but I'm sure many of you who drive cars here have been at charging stations that had more of the feeling of that gas pump here. It doesn't matter if the charging station is installed. If you cannot ensure high reliability, it doesn't matter. We're very proud that our charging stations in Amsterdam, we have proven 99.7% availability. That is what gives people confidence. They know they can get where they need to get. And that comes from services. This is a team from our mother company, NG Services in Slovakia. This is actually one of the first CHAdeMO and CCS hyperfast chargers, high-power chargers. This is now opening today. This is just from yesterday. You can see the cooling unit and the double high-power charger. So having the right, so when we work with partners, we really stress, can you maintain and service this infrastructure? If you cannot do that, then you have to find someone that can help you with that. Then there's the whole thing of roaming, right? Of charge cards. This is, for me from Norway, this has not been an issue because we've had, the EV Association has done its card and people don't really drive that much across borders. But here in the Netherlands, of course, we've had to pioneer developments in this. And we have our own, while our charging stations are all using the OCPP now 1.6 JSON, and SOAP if you have to, we still have, we also have our own charging management software that works with OCPP and also works with OCPI. And so now we have started the integration. Many of you may have heard about the roaming agreement with ChargePoint in the US, which is powered by OCPI. So I'm very happy to see, I was talking to a partner from India, and when I explained to him what OCPI meant, he was like, that's a breakthrough, because it allows you to collaborate in a much better, much more distributed way in building out the charging network, charging market. And then it's about transparency for the prices. When people go to charge somewhere, they want to see what the prices are. And that's, in Norway, the case has just been that it's just everybody has the same price and it never changes. But that is not a very smart way to build out infrastructure. So that's, I think, some job we have to do. The third, about capital. We see a lot of people wanting to invest in charging infrastructure, but they're being held back. They're being held back by energy companies saying, oh no, this is energy sales, you cannot make those investments. They're also being held back, by the way, by talks of subsidies. In that period between there's a talk about subsidy till the subsidy is there, which can be years, nobody wants to make investments. This is, I think of EV charging as a kind of bolt-on business. It's something that you build onto something else. Gas stations are so few that you can have specialized companies. Offers of charging services are more like they do something else for you while you are charging. So this restaurant here in the US, if they want to invest in charging stations and charging services and offer that as a service, this is good for everyone. But unfortunately, some places, more places that you can think, countries, there's talk about, they're saying, oh no, this is electricity retail, you can't do that. So that's something that we need to change as well. I think that's a front that we haven't really taken up, how to deal with that from energy companies. In fact, they actually need to speed up if they want to keep up and avoid the huge grid defection that's going to happen over the next years with solar. And the same thing is for workplaces. If you want to, I think the beauty is you can start with charging stations for your own employees, and then if you decide to, you can offer this in an open market. That's kind of a peer-to-peer idea that I really love. Same thing with condominiums. People talk about, why can't you just put credit card terminals on your charging stations? Well, actually, charging stations in your condominium are also public charging stations. It is the beauty of the charge card, it makes it relatively cheap and easy to make payment terminals even in your condominium. In Norway, when they subsidized, or they made a subsidy program for fast charging stations, there was no requirement for any open roaming. You could essentially build your own fenced garden. So this investment here in a beautiful location up at 2,000 meters above sea level, 1,800 meters, a company got funding to build this. It was not using any roaming platform. People got there, had to pay like 20 euros for a monthly plan to be able to charge there. It was a disaster. In the Netherlands, I've seen that we are much better at requiring if you want state funding, you have to provide OPEX and promote the free market. So we need to continue the promotion of access to open markets, of transparency of prices, and we should stop subsidizing walled gardens and monopolization. That's not only Norway, by the way, also in the UK we've seen stuff like that. The fourth, freedom to create, to move, to live in good health. These are a couple of, it's actually an engineer and a sales guy at our office. We invest a lot in developing new technologies. I saw some statistics that in the Netherlands now there are many thousands of jobs in the EV charging industry. And we're spreading this to new markets, to countries around the world. We have partner academies where we bring in people, help them, tell them what has happened in the Netherlands, help them see how they can build this business in their countries. And you see very happy faces. This is from an installation in the UK. This is from an installation in Peru. If there's any interest in collaborating with BYD, I can tell you we have a good cooperation over there. You see thumbs up and happy faces all around. This is something that you can't stop. Once you get the electric feeling, you can't stop it. And it's also about tourism. This is from a hotel on the beach in Costa Rica. My wife and the receptionist are looking at, wow, this is so cool. You can charge outside the reception. And actually here we just had the emergency charger. We plugged it 110 volts. It took about 35 hours, but it did charge. And it's about letting people get to work without getting sick. If you're going to bicycle to work, you want to bicycle next to an electric car or a gasoline car. Clearly, you want to have the zero emission option. And all this gives us the freedom to grow up in a safe environment, powered by clean energy from the sun. 90% of kids breathe toxic air. According to the World Health Organization, there's 600,000 kids that die every year because of air pollution. Now, that's not all from cars, but for cars and mobility, we have the solution. It's really time to double down on what we're doing. And we also don't have so many years left before climate change is going to get really troublesome for a lot of people. Here in Arnhem, we're a little bit above sea level, but I have colleagues whose sisters live below sea level, and I'd like to see us help them. My mom can do this. This is my mom. For 2.5 years ago, she got an electric car. She was so happy, she went and talked to the local newspaper, and they came and wrote a story about it. And 2 weeks later, a lady wrote to her and said, I was so inspired, and went out and did the same. This is in Costa Rica. These kids were so excited to learn about electric mobility. This is in the countryside. For sure, if anybody says, yeah, this electric cars, that's for industrialized, rich Netherlands or Norway, is not for developing countries. Well, this proves you wrong. They're pioneers here, have been driving electric since 2011, and they're dying to get involved. So my message to all of you is double down on your spreading of the story. It's surprising. It surprises me all the time how little people know. Help them do the numbers. If you're in a taxi and you don't convince the driver to go electric, you missed an opportunity. This was last week. I was in Palestine. This is the first electric car in Palestine on the West Bank. The city is called Rawabi, and the Peugeot importer has started selling electric cars there, and we're supplying the charging stations. By chance, I took a picture of the city as I was flying into Tel Aviv. I thought, wow, that's an amazing city. The city they're building for 25,000 people, Rawabi. I suggested to them they should do like Amsterdam and say by 2025, there will be only zero-emission cars entering, and I think they really got it. So let's create a zero-emission future. Let's do that together, and let's do it now. And to all of you, I have an invitation. The 19th of March next year, we have our annual get-together for the industry, where we bring together people not just from the EV charging industry, but from related industries to talk about what's the future looking like. How can we together collaborate in creating and making sure that an open EV charging and EV transition is going to take place as fast as possible is. I thank you very much for your attention.